Hello everyone and welcome to week 13 of English 120. This week you're going to be turning in a draft of your research paper. Very exciting. So we're going to be reading chapter 14 of the Bedford Researcher, which is on drafting. We're also going to be doing the comp class assignment where you're going to work on integrating sources. It's a very important part of your research paper. And instead of doing a discussion forum in Blackboard like we usually do, this week you're actually going to do the discussion in comp class. So please make sure you complete comp class this week. Your goal at the end of this week is to turn in a completed research paper draft. It needs to be at least 4 to 6 pages long. One of the ways that you signify when you integrate a quotation into your research paper, one of the ways you signify that the voice that you're using, the words that you're using are not your own, is through the use of attributions. This is one of the most important parts of your research paper because it helps you introduce these people that are going to be supporting whatever you're saying in your research paper. When you use attributions, you use them whenever you quote, paraphrase, or summarize anything. And they're when you use phrases such as according to. Here's an example. Pamela Koch argues education reform is the best solution for fixing our public schools. Here are some common attributions. It's a good idea to print this out and have it near you when you're writing your research paper. It'll help you introduce your quotes. When you quote, you also need to provide context. You can't just stick a quote into your paper and expect the reader to connect it to your argument. You have to provide context. Establish why the quotation, summary, or paraphrase is reliable by presenting the source's credentials and connecting how the information relates to the point that you're making. So one way I like to think about this is to tell people to think about making a quote sandwich. So for example, you have just given an attribution. So according to Jack London, right? The Valley of the Moon is, and you'll quote something from his novel, The Valley of the Moon, about how the Valley of the Moon is the most beautiful place in the world. Now, if I'm writing a paper about that's arguing that the Valley of the Moon is the most beautiful place in the world, I need to, after I include this quotation and attribute it to Jack London, after the quotation, I need to say, first, what it means, and second, I need to connect it back to my thesis statement. Why have I given this quotation from Jack London? What does it have to do with proving that Valley of the Moon is the most beautiful place in the world? To you, it may seem very obvious because you are writing the paper. You've read all the sources. You've done all the research. But to your reader, you have to connect the dots. Whenever you include a quotation, remember, give an attribution, then the quotation, then you interpret the quotation, tell us what it means, then relate it to your thesis statement or the subtopic that you're talking about. Whenever you whenever you cite something, now this slide is actually not correct because we're going to be learning about quotations this week. But you do need to, last week we talked about MLA formatting. Please review. I've gone through many of your sources assignments and there are some issues with your citations. Remember, chapter 21 tells you in depth on how to cite each and every kind of citation that you're doing. So for example, if you're citing a book, go back and look in the chapter and look up how to cite a book. Or if you're citing an article, there's a different way to cite an article. Make sure you look up the type of thing that you're citing and then cite it correctly. So here's an example of an in-text citation. Whenever you refer to a text inside of your research paper, you need to, like I said, you need to contextualize, you need to introduce the source, then you need to Then you need to include the source, and then you need to explain the source. When you cite the same source at the end of your paper, you include it as something called a works cited document. At the very end of your paper, there's going to be one page that's completely devoted to your works cited. There's an example of what this looks like in the Bedford Researcher, chapter 21, at the very end of the chapter. The works cited page is located at the very end of the document. And what it does is it lists in alphabetical order the authors and the sources that you used in your paper. You must list every single source that you refer to within your paper. When you refer to a source in your paper, you're only going to put in right after the quotation in parentheticals, you'll put the last name and the page number, close parentheticals, and then the punctuation like a period. That last name signifies to the reader who's reading it to look back at the work cited. Then they can look up whatever the sources that you've listed in your works cited page. They can look up the full citation. Now, I know this is a lot of work this week, so please try to manage your time. If any of you did not make it to the research conferences last week, please schedule one with me this Wednesday. You can email me to set up the appointment, or you can give me a call. All that information is on the syllabus. It's very important, guys, that you don't fall behind in these last few weeks, because this is where the majority of the points for your grade happen. So don't fall behind. If you have questions, please ask me. All right? It was great meeting a lot of you in conferences this week, and I look forward to talking to you some more. Once you get your drafts in this week, I'm not putting any of the reading or anything down, but next week we'll be doing peer review. So you must turn in your draft in order to set it up, in order for me to be able to set up our peer review for next week. So please turn it in on time. All right, that's it for this week. Don't forget to do your comp class assignment this week with the discussion in your comp class. I'll talk to you guys later.